Welcome, readers, to another episode of the Bougie Book Pod, where we get together and we deep dive and talk about our most recent reads together. I would just like to point out that every week when I do this welcome introduction, it takes me so long to do it because it feels so awkward.
I mean, it is.
It is, and it reminds me of during the pandemic, my son was 4, and I had to rely, regrettably, and please don't come at me, on screens for him to be occupied while I did classes online.
Oh, yeah.
And so he started watching a lot of YouTube videos that I checked first, but he watched a lot of, I don't know if you know Ryan's World, that little boy who would like go through different toys, and it became like this whole big thing. Anyway, he got so obsessed with watching these shows that he would constantly ask me to make videos of him.
Oh my
God. I would laugh so much because he'd always start it with, "Hey guys, today we're going back into my room." And he did it so naturally, and I thought, what a weirdo. And here I am going, "Hey guys, welcome to another episode." So Dean would be proud. But here we are. I'm Tara.
I'm Kira.
And we are here today to get back into the world of Feyre and Sarah J. Maas with, is this book 3?
Yeah, book 3 of the series.
Book 3, Acowar, A Court of Wings and Ruin. And if we want to just get straight into it, or do you want to talk about your life? What do you want to do?
No, we can get straight into it.
Okay.
It's fresh in my head. So
Okay. So this story picks up where Mist and Fury left off, following our girl Feyre, who's secretly the High Lady of the Night Court, back into Tamlin's possessive, hairy arms and behind the gates at the Spring Court. She's playing the role of Rhysand's victim and acting as double agent, with the goal of destroying her once beloved court from the inside out. She does this not to harm the people of the Spring Court, but to lay the groundwork for them to mistrust Tamlin and his rule, because she is pissed.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah. So having not forgotten the traitor's deal that Tamlin made with the King of Hybern that inevitably brought her sisters into the mess, Feyre feels little guilt in her pursuit to take him down. And so the story begins with Feyre dining, planning, and hunting with the so-called enemy until she finds her opportunity to find her way back to her mate. It isn't easy. The journey is full of obstacles and uncertainty, but what is certain is that there is a war coming. On the front lines, the wall protecting the human lands. Rhysand, Feyre, and the court need allies. But the problem is, who will stand with the human turned fae and the once whore to Amarantha?
Poor Rhys.
I know. So.
Yeah, one thing before we even start with the summary, obviously, spoilers ahead.
Oh yeah, always with us.
Always, because I would have a really hard time honestly talking about a book without it. But the one thing I do want to point out before we go into the summary is I think it's very interesting, and I know Sarah J. Maas does everything so intentional, but like when you, like we say Acowar, Acamath, like whatever you want to call it, like the fact that this one shortens down to Acowar,
yeah,
but it's Wings and Ruin, I just think is very like obviously interesting and intentional of her, and I like that. But anywho,
so let's get into it.
Back in the Spring Court.
Yeah, so it starts with Feyre. She's back in the Spring Court, and she's pretending that everything is back to the way it was in some degree.
Yeah.
So due to the deal that Tamlin made, Jurian and the king's niece and nephew?
Yeah, niece and nephew.
Are they brother and sister?
Yeah, they're kind of weird.
Yeah, they're very, very, They're very weird. They come to the Spring Court for a while, and during this time, they take trips around the lands to inspect holes in the wall, hoping to find more, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of my word.
I don't know. It's interesting how long they look.
Insecurities. They're looking for insecurities so that they want to take down that wall, separating them in the human lands. And so Feyre, in her time of pretending to be rah-rah Spring Court, she has built up a little bit of trust with Tamlin where he's allowing her to go with them on these trips. But she's doing it, just to kind of find out what is it that they want. All the time, though, Lucien is like, I don't believe her.
Yeah.
But he's putting up with it because, remember, his mate is Feyre's sister.
I think he's playing the long game, too.
Yes, he is. He's like, I'm going to try and get on her good side.
Oh, yeah.
Feyre is playing the long game, and she's trying to find her best moment to make a big move. But all the while, she's like planting these little seeds of unrest within the spring court.
And even with his soldiers too, like she's very intentional about planning that, like, things might be off here.
Yes, and also kind of going out of her way to best Ianthe.
Yeah.
So there are moments where you can tell that Ianthe is trying to look like this, almost like God-given character of like, oh, I was sent here to help you. And Feyre can always figure that out, and then she kind of worms in, and then it looks like Feyre is the one who has been sent by some god or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there are moments where Tamlin has to beat a soldier, like he's accused of something, and it is all because of Ianthe, and Feyre shows her disgust in it. And just in these little things like that, she starts to sow these seeds of the people going, even the High Lord's fiance doesn't want to do this. She knows something is wrong. And so, she's playing this little game here and really chipping away at the foundation of the Spring Court. So I'm skipping a lot, really, because it is a pretty big book.
Yeah, it's hefty.
Yeah, and, if you've read the book, you know and you enjoyed it. So on one of the trips, Feyre finally feels as though she's gathered enough information from being with Jurian and the niece and nephew to kind of make her moment of escape. And she feels like she's destroyed enough, she's chipped away, and that like this is her grand finale and she is getting the hell out of there. But on her way, she's almost out of there. She's gathered her supplies. She's on an overnight thing with Lucien, Ianthe, the Jurian, the nephew, the niece. And she finds a moment to get away. But then she hears Ianthe and Lucien. And Ianthe is like harassing him.
Yeah, and he's like against a tree, I believe. Like she's got him like cornered.
Yeah,
and,
it's
like,
really gross.
Putting her hands on him, and
and at this moment, Feyre's remembering things that Rhysand had told her about her and how she's like very predatory and just really gross. And because she does like and love Lucien, she can't help it but turn around and go back, and she teaches her a lesson.
That was brutal.
Yeah. And what is Feyre called that she can get into people's minds? What is that called?
Oh, she and Rhysand are Dementies.
Yeah,
Dementi something.
Yeah, and so she uses that power to get into Ianthe's head and basically like, you are never going to touch somebody without their consent, but just to make sure you keep your hands to yourself, you're going to take that rock and you're going to smash it. And you're going to smash it. And you're going to smash it. And you can't go to the doctor. You can't get it fixed. And let that be a reminder to you. And she pretty much destroys her. It's really awesome, actually. She deserves it because she's the worst. And then Lucien is just kind of like blown away. But he's also kind of, I knew it.
Yeah.
Freaking knew you weren't really, But unfortunately, that takes up some of her time to skedaddle out of there. And the king's niece and nephew, they come into the mix, and then there's like this little battle. Spoiler, Feyre and Lucien get away. And so now at this point, after Feyre and Lucien are able to completely, how would you say, obliterate the niece and nephew?
Yeah, they just pretty much.
With no mercy. Now these two are on a journey. And that I feel like, even though there was a lot building up to this of like learning how Feyre was kind of worming her way in and getting back into good graces and ruining things for Tamlin, I feel like this is where the book really, really starts. When Lucien and Feyre are kind of on the run.
Yep.
And now Lucien has realized that he's making this decision to leave with her. He will no longer be accepted into the Spring Court. Like he's pretty much kind of drawn a line in the sand with Tamlin anyway.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about when they make the run, correct me if I'm wrong, the niece and nephew do use Faebane on them.
Yes, that's right.
So they can't just winnow. I was like,
they can't winnow.
They can't winnow. They can't use their magic. So they're legitimately like on the run. They have to cross so many courts to get to the night court. So that was like, obviously you're thinking like, just use your magic, snap your fingers, but
yes, and I forgot about that too. And it turns out, because leading up to that trip too, she kept feeling like little headaches or something. I mean, she kept thinking they were just trying to get into her brain, but what they figured out that she had that power, but then they were just like feeding her a little bit of this Feyre a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. So yeah, that was no bueno for them. So they embark on this journey with no magic. They're going through Autumn Court. They have to go through Winter Court. I mean, it's many, many days of travel.
Check my map.
And but so Lucian is angry on the one hand because he sees that Feyre is trying to destroy kind of the Spring Court, or at least its workings, right?
Yeah.
To bring down their defenses. And he's very loyal to Tamlin, but he knows that if he is with Feyre, he will see Elaine. And that's really all he cares about at this point, which is so weird to me. I feel like when you read this book, you definitely understand that mating bond between Rhysand and Feyre.
Yes.
But theirs feels different from everybody else's that we've read about.
Theirs is just more like, I think because like Feyre and Rhysand, like they built up, like he knew, she didn't, like they did actually fall in love, where like Lucian looked at her and was like, "You're my mate." And it was like, okay, this is a very traumatic moment. Elaine wants nothing to do with you. It's just, it feels very like forced.
Yeah.
Not like Lucian forces himself or anything, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. I don't love, like, it's not something I love. Whenever they talk about Lucian and Elaine and that, I'm just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, it's not going to work, I don't think. So anyway, so that's where he's kind of being propelled from.
Yeah.
They hide in like a little cave or something, or underground road through the Autumn Court, where he is from. And on their way out into the Winter Court, they unfortunately run into his brothers.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I can't remember their names. Eris.
I mean, Eris is honestly the only one I really remember.
Yeah, Eris, and then the other
He's
brothers.
the only one that like makes his presence in multiple books.
And they have quite the showdown of brute force. And I think at this point...
And they're on like the ice on a lake or something.
Yes, and they still don't have their magic, but it's like coming back in like driblets. Yeah. And because Feyre has figured out her powers from all the different courts, she's summoning her fire and trying to like fight fire with fire. And it's kind of a brutal fight that they're going through, but they're so close to getting over the ice and then into the next part that they need to go. But at this point, it's looking like they're going to burn the ice and have her like drown in it. Yeah. And then suddenly, do you want to give that line? Suddenly we hear...
Because Eris is like dragging her by her hair or something like really aggressive.
Lucian is being attacked. She's being dragged. She can feel like this is not going to work out. She has little magic left. So does Lucian. And then we hear like this like whooshing sound.
Yep. And they think it's like, I think if I remember correctly in the book, they almost think like the ice is cracking more. It's like very aggressive sound. And they're like, oh my God, what was that?
Then suddenly someone says,
I think it's Azriel.
Yeah. Was it? I thought it was Cassian.
Was
well,
it?
Spoiler, they both come. And you hear, I suggest you drop my lady. And Cassian and Azriel rescue Feyre and Lucian, flying them back to Valaris.
Oh my God, I found it.
You did?
I found it so fast. That was impressive for how big of a book this is. Wow. Okay, let's see. I saw Azriel too. He was live and healed. Ooh, you're right. As Cassian drew twin Illyrian blades, the sight of them like home, and said to Eris with lethal calm. I think it's because Azriel drops like the good one-liners.
Yeah, he does.
That's why I thought, but yeah, it was Cassian.
And you know, at this point, did she tell Lucian that she was the High Lady while they were in there?
No, they haven't dropped it. They haven't dropped High Lady yet. Yeah. He just said, I suggest you drop my lady.
My lady. Gotcha. Okay.
So they haven't dropped the bomb.
They haven't. But I think in that moment, that's when everyone is like, the way that they speak of
the
her
alliance with her.
You know? And so they do rescue the two of them, and Feyre is reunited with her family. Rhysand is not there right away. He was on some sort of mission or something, and he feels awful that he wasn't there to save her. But she's just happy to be home. They're filthy, they're gross, they're skinny again. But she's concerned with her sisters. And she finds out that Elaine has suffered greatly and is not okay. And that Nesta is nastier than ever.
Yeah, but Nesta's at least like talking.
She's alive and she's okay, but she is a very, very angry person. And then, of course, Feyre has her reunion with Rhysand, and of course, that's beautiful. She shares everything that she learned at the Spring Court and her time with the Hybern agents, the way that they examine the holes in the wall, the feeling that they're getting ready to pull down the wall with the humans, the feeling that we really need to protect the humans. There's no one letting them even know this is on the horizon. And this is when Rhysand determines that a meeting with all the High Lords is necessary because they need to ally against Hybern. Not one court can stand up to it alone. And that's where things get tricky, I feel, because it seems like there's so much drama in every single court.
Yeah, because every court has like a different backstory with like the Night Court and like who they're close with. And I know like the Night Court, their biggest alliance does fall to other Solstice courts, so Day and Dawn, which I think is super interesting because we don't like actually talk about them a lot.
No.
And then like Winter, they're like okay, but they also are hesitant because of the whole Under the Mountain situation. And then obviously Summer, they've got the blood rubies, so they're like,
that doesn't help them.
Things are still a little weird there. And then Autumn, obviously because of how terrible. Can think of what his dad's name is. BBB. It starts with a B. Lucian's dad. Anyway, how terrible he is.
Yeah.
And then, obviously Spring Court. Those issues are very obvious. But
there's a lot of messiness between several different characters that is going to make a meeting of everybody quite difficult.
And all the courts are just like so intertwined in some sort of way.
Yeah, and they're all still reeling from Amarantha and trying to put the pieces back together in their own courts. So everybody's got something going on. So Feyre decides perhaps a visit to the Bone Carver again might be helpful. Maybe he'll know something that can give us a leg up against Hybern. So she goes with Cassian?
Yeah, I think at this point it might be Cassian.
Yeah, I think she goes with Cass. And the Carver still again appears to Feyre as this beautiful little boy who says it now in this part?
Yeah, she started to piece together like that looks like a child of like Rhysand and I. Like,
yeah. And he tells her of the help me with this pronunciation.
I say like
our Ouroboros.
Yes, that's how in my head I say it.
We're just gonna call it the mirror. So he tells her of this special mirror that if she can get this for him and bring it back to him, he will help her. He will leave his jail.
Yeah.
And he will help them fight against Hybern. Because at first she was like, what if we could free you? And he's like, I have no interest in that. There's nothing out there for me. I'm fine here with my bones.
Yeah.
But then he's like, if you can get this mirror, I'll do it for you. And she goes, all right, bet. As the kids say. So they go.
Like, how hard could that be?
Yeah, okay, I just got to get you a mirror. No problem. I can do that. And he said, well, it's in the Court of Nightmares. And she's like, okay, that might be a little problem because I know they don't like us, but that's fine. That's fine. And so back to home she goes, and they go to the Court of Nightmares to meet with Keir. And now it's a totally different meeting from the last one, because in the last one she played like this whorish character.
Like she was Rhysand's pet.
I mean, now everybody knows that not everybody knows, but now everyone will know she goes there with a crown, and it's basically, it's business. Like, you're going to listen to me. And, but in this meeting, Moore learns that Rhysand has kind of structured this alliance between Keir and Eris
Yeah.
from the Autumn Court. And this almost kills her because this is her dad who was selling her off
to Eris,
and then Eris who left her
to die because she slept with Cassian.
Because she slept, and she's just like these two men who she hates most in the world now have this bargain.
And she was very betrayed by Rhysand.
Yes.
Because he's the one that put it into place.
Yeah. And also Keir has now access to go into Valaris where, that's the only place where she feels safe and like home. And she understands why they need this. They needed to do this, but she's still very heartbroken and feels kind of betrayed. So now we've got this kind of fracturing amongst our group in the Night Court. Although I feel like as a reader, it will be resolved, but you feel really bad for her in this moment. So in this time now, Keir says to Feyre, sure, you can have that mirror. No skin off my back if you can take it.
So it's supposed to show you like just the worst of like people will go insane if they look at it. I noticed like what you noted because I thought the same thing.
Did you?
Too. Yeah.
I said that it kind of reminded me of the Mirror of Erised from Harry Potter and how like, it's what you desire, but it will make you go crazy because you don't have it. Yeah. Whereas this one will make you go crazy because it shows you truthfully, all of you, like you're bad, you're good. And that some people can't handle seeing the bad in you, right? You don't want to see that when you look in the mirror. So now Feyre is just like, great. No one has been able to claim this mirror. Everyone goes insane. So this may not be something that I can accomplish. And she kind of puts it in the back of her mind. But she's still always thinking, like, what can I do? What else can we...
Yeah. Like, maybe Bonecarver isn't priority number one.
Exactly. There's got to be other agents out there that I can work through. But also we have to remember that in the last book, she was able to summon wings. Mm-hmm. And so it's not easy for her. But she's thinking, if I can be trained, it might be useful. There might be a moment where I need to fly. I can help someone. So she asks to be trained. And they're all kind of like, that is going to take way longer than we have. But good old Asriel, he goes, you know what? Yeah, I'll help you. Like maybe whatever little we can help you with will be important. So she trains with him. And while doing all that, gosh, and when they describe it, it sounds so painful. Mm-hmm. Like I can't imagine like your muscles growing wings and then learning how to like move it, and like that seemed really weird to me. So she's training, and then she's also trying to do research about the mirror, thinking that maybe there's a loophole, maybe there is a way I can claim it, and that's when she learns about this library. Do you know if the library had a name?
I think they really just call it the library.
So there's this library that Rhysand has, and he kind of uses it as his place to get away. Mm-hmm. But he also has these priestess running it. But these priestess aren't like Ianthe. Mm-hmm. They're like...
They needed like refuge somewhere.
Yeah, they're refugee priestess.
Reason, yeah.
Yeah. And they've been there for eons and eons of years, and that is where they are safe. But unfortunately, the moment Feyre gets there, there is an attack in that library from, I believe it was 2 people from Highburn, and they are clearly looking for something. And what you find out is that they are looking for Nesta and Elaine. And what we learn from, Feyre overhearing them and then her interactions with them as she's trying to get away is that they both, in a sense, took something from the cauldron, especially Nesta. Mm-hmm. And the cauldron doesn't seem to be working the way it should be, or the way the King of Highburn is expecting.
And they still have a tight connect, like Nesta and Elaine are intertwined and connected with the cauldron in some sort of way. So that's also like a downfall for the inner circle.
Yes.
Because they're always going to be connected.
Exactly. And so the King of Highburn, he has all these plans for the cauldron. And he's thinking, well, I need those girls back because I need this cauldron at full power. And so that's not good. But what I didn't mention was that there's this beast that lives hidden in the depths of the library because, of course, why wouldn't there be? I thought that was really random.
And what I love about Braxis is his name. Yeah. The one thing I love about him is how Cassian is scared shitless of him.
Yes.
Like, that just cracks me up that Cassian's absolutely terrified of this.
Yeah, so like in the beginning where Rhysand mentions it to her, because I think she heard something, or there's like this big pit or whatever, and she's like, what is down there? And he's like, it's this monster. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it looks like. No one has ever seen it except Cassian. And he won't tell anyone what it looks like. And like, he'll kill you if you even try to go there.
Yeah.
But in the midst of her trying to get away from these guys who are looking for her sisters, she goes down there.
Yeah, she has to like go to the depths to like get away from them.
And you know, this thing starts talking to her, and I'm sure it's all very creepy. I'd love to see it all in real time in action. But she's hearing this voice, and she's basically like, help me. And it's like, well, you know, what are you going to do for me? And she's like, well, I'm going to feed you, you know, if you help me.
Yeah, first off, you get these two to eat.
Yeah, like, please, I'll make a deal with me. Like, let me, like, help me, and you can eat these two, you know. And he's just like, sure. So she survives this attack by making this deal with him. But what you don't remember, or what I forgot, is that when you make a deal with anything, I guess, in the Night Court, she gets that, like, that tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though she survives that, Rhysand sees this tattoo on her, and he's like, what in the hell did you do? She's like, oh, I just made a deal with that thing.
There are so many funny TikToks about like Rhysand like turning away and Feyre coming back with another tattoo. Yeah. Like, so she's always
I don't know if I mention it in this book when I make my notes, but there are things with this girl where I know it's only been like 2 years that she's been in this world, but I feel like the people in the Night Court, at least, even at this point, and it's new, have really proven themselves to be like on her side and wanting to protect her, and nothing like Tamlin in terms of keeping her in the dark.
Yeah.
So I don't know why she continues to feel like I just got to do this by myself.
Yeah.
Like, she gets herself in a lot of sticky situations, our girl. So she survives this attack, but now they know that
Elaine and Nesta are priority number one. Yeah. And but it's also kind of helpful because up until this point, they were kind of worried that Elaine was a little nutso.
Yeah, she was like saying weird things, like talking about like, oh, he's coming, or the flapping of the wings, and you're just like, what the?
Yeah, so she's one way by day and another by night, and she's
they're just saying, she's saying weird things, but she won't like explain anything.
She doesn't elaborate. She's like very far off looking. She's not eating. You know, she's not eating. She only sits in one spot. And yeah, she's saying these weird cryptic things, but what they realize is they start putting it all together. She's a seer.
Yeah.
And she's saying these things that she has been seeing and having visions.
She like she like had a vision of the attack happening. Yeah. There's some other things that she like sees, and once the things start, oh, like that's what she was talking about when she was referring to that. They're like, oh, okay, that's what you are.
Exactly, and I think...
But it doesn't really help them because she's still, like, off the rocker a bit.
She is. But I guess you can't blame her entirely. No. She's been thrust into this completely different world that she knew about, but absolutely wanted no part of.
She's still convinced she's marrying this human.
Oh, poor Elaine.
Yeah.
But to her credit, she's trying a little bit.
Yeah, she's like my least favorite sister, I'm not gonna lie.
Is she really?
Yeah.
That's funny. I have...
You'll grow to like Nesta in the next books, but yeah, Elaine, me.
Well, I like Nesta's fire, but in the next book, the Frost and Starlight, I'm a little frustrated with her.
Oh yeah, you'll be frustrated with her, and there'll be moments where you want to like smack her upside the head.
Yeah. Alright, so back here. So, Elaine is not crazy. Completely. She's just, you know, dealing with some things, but she is a seer. And then all this time, we haven't been talking about Mr. Lucian, but he has been living in the Night Court. Mm-hmm. He's completely miserable. I think he just feels lost. Yeah. Tamlin was his best friend. He feels very guilty about his betrayal of him. He does not like Rhysand, but he respects Rhysand and what he's done for Feyre, and he does care about Feyre, but this is not his place. He's like, you know, a dog with no home.
Yeah.
It's really sad. And he tries here and there to just talk to Elaine, and she just straight up wants absolutely nothing to do with him. It's quite sad, actually. But I feel like
Feyre kind of gets pissed too, and she's like, "You need to stay away from my sister."
Yeah.
But then like Nesta's always next to Elaine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Nesta's like becomes very protective of her. Where was I? So I think Lucian starts to realize he's not gonna get anywhere with Elaine, and so they start talking about this human queen that was cursed, and she might be an asset in the war. And Elaine had mentioned a few things about her. So Lucian's like, "I'll go find her.
Yeah.
I'll take this mission.
And
I gotta get out of here."
She's on the, God, I'm so sorry. I've read this like 15 times today. She is on the continent, so she's not even on the same island as them. But he's still like, I'll sail across the sea and fly myself over.
He just has to get out of there. He needs a change, and he needs to.
I also think like part of Lucian, like, he needs a purpose. Yeah. In Tamlin's court, he had a role, like he had a purpose, and now he's just kind of like, I wake up, I go to these meals. Yeah. I watch them interact.
Yeah. And he's also feeling like he's there
saw
on their
Elaine
charity.
for 20 seconds.
Yeah, he's there on their charity. He's eating their food and wearing their clothes, and it's very strange to him, and he doesn't like it. He needs to do something. So he's like, yeah, I'll go. And off he goes, and Elaine doesn't even like say bye, and he tries to say goodbye to her, and I think Feyre is starting to feel bad about it too. And I think there's a moment where she kind of says to Elaine, you know, like, you could talk to him. Yeah. And she's just like, no. So in that time, they're still trying to set up this High Lord meeting. There's some messages going back and forth about where it will be, and then of course there's arguments on like, oh, it should be here, it should be there. But before that even happens, there's an attack on the summer court. And this comes through because Varian, he sends like a secret message to Amryn. And basically like, you know, help. Yeah. Like, we are getting attacked. And so they don't even think twice. They go straight. They went straight there to help.
Blood rubies and all.
Yeah, and there's a moment where they're like, "Oh, are we gonna be killed over there?" Like, well, that's just something we're gonna have to deal with when we get there. And so they deal with that, and I think Feyre and Moore end up going to like the castle or whatever.
Yeah, they end up in the castle, going through the different floors of the castle and just like slaughtering their way through.
Yeah, and making sure that they're saving like the High Lord's people, and Rhysand and Cassian and Azriel and the Illyrian fighters, they're out on the fronts there. And it seems to be like a really bloody battle. In the end, they are able to push off the Highburn attack, and Tarquin, the High Lord there, he's grateful, but he's also not happy. Yeah. He's not happy that they're there. He's grateful that they helped, but he's also kind of like, you can go now. Which I get. And I guess they were just lucky to leave and not be attacked themselves at that point, because he is feeling betrayed by them.
Yeah, and I think he also has to, he's the youngest of the High Lords, so he has to put on this like front of like, you know, you obviously betrayed me. Yes, you just helped us out, but like, I still gotta act like
strong.
Yeah, and show
have like a resolute.
Yeah, that this matters to me, instead of just being like, okay, forgiven.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. But and then they leave, and they're like, well, if you need anything, you need us to stay, you need us to come back, we're here. And I think it at least kind of sows a seed that perhaps we can mend this, and they will be more open to our meeting and what we need to do as an alliance. And then we get to the High Lord meeting, and I wrote down in my notes just lordy.
Yeah.
This one is, well, how would you describe that?
Well, you have, so everyone brings like their crew, so that's one thing. It's not just the High Lords. Obviously Cassian's there, Azriel's there, Moore is there. You've got Wintercourt, his wife, all these people. Slowly but surely they file in. And then last but not least, shocking everyone, Tamlin shows up.
Yeah, and it is a rough scene. Yeah. He comes in, and it's funny, in my mind I wasn't even picturing him as like a man anymore. I was just seeing like Beast from Beauty and the Beast. Like, I was just seeing like this hairy, like angry thing.
I pictured like a guy who's like severely hungover.
Oh my god.
Like unwell, hasn't showered in days.
Yes, and he's just like growling, you know? And I was just, it was crazy. And so every word out of his mouth is like a dagger at Feyre.
Yes. no one can even be like talking about Feyre. And he's be like, well, one time Feyre.
I bet Feyre would do that.
Yeah, and everyone's just kind of like, oh my god, dude, like
awkward. And so he paints Feyre as like this two-timing, power-hungry whore. Like, you know,
Yeah.
she couldn't be high lady with me, so she found an opportunity. You know, and
Yeah.
I mean, and Feyre, to her credit, she stays quiet. She doesn't fight back, and even Rhysand has the composure to not rip him to shreds. I don't know how, but this is really bad. He is angry as hell, and
this is when they drop the bomb on Feyre's position.
yes,
And I am so close to where they come in. I feel like I was getting lucky with finding those lines, but now I'm not going to. Because that line is also iconic, and how they find out, the other High Lords find out that she's a High Lady, is...
and I think in that time too, the big worry before getting together at this meeting was, do we let them know that she
Yes.
has powers or not?
Yeah.
Because the fear is some of them will be pretty pissed that her powers are as strong as they are, and they want them back. Or
But Autumn
like-
Court has already figured it out because
Yeah.
they saw the fire come out.
Yes,
and that came
but
from them.
Eris before, and this is like during that part where he had that little deal with Kier, he said that he will keep that to himself because he knows his father. He knows that his father will have things to say about it. But I believe she does tell them all at this point because
She
things get so out of hand where it's necessary.
It's before Tamlin shows up, though, or someone figures it out. Because I just read the line where Tamlin hasn't shown up yet, and they're like yapping away, and they're talking to Kallias, the Winter Court guy.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you and she got married, blah, blah, blah. And they're talking. And then all of a sudden, you hear, does Tamlin know what she is? And then Rhys was like, you can be beautiful and clever. Then, yeah, I think he does. And then it says, Helion looked at him. Does he know she is your mate and High Lady? And then Kallias' wife or whatever was like, High Lady? And then Thessian and Kallias kind of like, they pinpointed it. But I thought there was like a really good line, and maybe it is after Tamlin shows up, that...
What chapter is this?
I'm on chapter 43. Maybe it's once Tamlin shows up, and R.I.P. I should have... Man. Oh, 44 is when Tamlin shows up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just remember like this really good line of them dropping the bomb it must have been specifically to Tamlin that she was the High Lady. And he was like, High Lady, there's no such thing. And I want to say it's Azrael that drops it. I want to give him the credit that he has the good lines in here. Honestly, but at this point, Baron, that's the Autumn Court guy's name, by the way.
Baron. What name was it B? I didn't.
Yes, and at that point, like, Baron's all pissy because he's the one that gets the most pissed because she has his power. Like, absolutely does not want to deal with that. And so the rest of them, I don't think are honestly that upset.
Okay, yes. Yeah, Azrael, it was Azrael who said, his voice like cold death, be careful how you speak about my High Lady.
Yes, because Tamlin insults her somewhere. Where are you? Oh, you don't have page numbers. That's fine.
This is chapter 44.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, he does.
And then, so Tamlin says, it was not enough to sit at my side, was it?
Mm-hmm.
You once asked me if you'd be my High Lady, and when I said no, perhaps I underestimated you. Why serve in my court when you can rule in his?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and, she did ask him about it, but it was just a question of like, oh, is there a High Lady? Is that what I would be called? And he eviscerates her at this point. But I think what is cool, kind of, is that it doesn't really affect anybody on their feelings of her.
Yeah.
And instead, I think it reflects poorly on him, and everyone's like, damn, Tamlin is in a bad spot.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't do what he hoped it would do.
People are definitely like shocked that she's High Lady.
Yeah.
But no one's
But
like
I think they're
fighting
more,
it.
No, and I think they're more like, dude, why are you here?
Yeah.
You know? And so as things go on, they do start talking about an alliance and the actual things that they came there for. The fact that Hybern is getting ready to knock down the wall and attacking the humans. They leave with some sort of semblance.
Yeah, because in the beginning they're really hesitant to say anything because they don't trust Tamlin still. And they know that he's been working with them, and Tamlin shows up, and Tamlin's like, oh, I have all these papers, I'll show you all these plans.
Yeah.
And so, like, finally they do, like, reveal a few things to him, and they do kind of walk away with, like...
They're not sure about him.
Like, Autumn Court hasn't said for sure if they're going to partake in this. Like, there are a couple courts that walk away kind of, like, on the fence, and Tamlin's definitely, like, the biggest, like, liability question mark when they walk away, but they have... Winter Court is pretty good. Summer Court is, you know, Day Court, Dawn Court, they feel okay there.
Yeah, and Tamlin is trying to play this role of double agent, too. Like, I was just trying to get information from him. But it doesn't feel that way. And I think shortly after they leave that meeting, something happens, and they're like, how else would Hybern have known? And it kind of comes back that Tamlin let them know.
Yeah.
And so, again, they're like, we were bamboozled by him. And at this point, it is clear to everyone, on the Night Court anyway, that they need to evacuate the human lands. It is, especially the ones that are so close to the wall, like where Feyre is from. And so... this is what kind of jumpstarts Elaine back, I think, into her own body. She's got a little bit of a purpose. She's also thinking of this guy, Grayson, who she was supposed to marry, thinking maybe if I can help save him. I don't know. I think she's thinking lots of thoughts here. So she helps to evacuate these human lands and try to get a plan together. I think they hide her ears with her hair or whatever.
They try to...
And I think she's just trying to, like, we'll get there and, you know, then I'll reveal it later.
Yeah. And her thought is also their compound would be so safe for the humans and all this
because
stuff.
they've been preparing for anti-Fae things for so long. And you want to take it away once they get to Grayson's compound?
So they get to Grayson's compound, and right off, he very quickly figures it out.
Yeah.
Which is not surprising, honestly. Figures out that she's Fae, is pissed. Yeah. His dad's there, and then Jurian's there, and you're just like, what the is happening?
Yeah, why is he there?
Yeah, why is Jurian here? Why did he seek you guys out? All this stuff. And they start to realize, like, first off, they can't trust anyone, obviously. Jurian is also, like, playing this, you're like, is he playing a role? What's he doing here?
He pretty much does the same thing that Tamlin did. I'm playing both sides.
And Grayson is just acting like such a dick. I'm pretty sure someone like punches him before they leave, or Nesta like verbally assaults him or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's aggressive. But then they leave, and then this is kind of when they really realize, like, okay, we have some of the courts, we don't have everyone. This is gonna be bad. So Feyre goes back to Braxis and makes another deal with him.
On her own.
Yeah.
She does not tell anyone. Again, she's like, I'm gonna take care of this by myself.
And this one is so funny to me because she's like, okay, we need you to fight this war. And he's like, all I want is a little sunlight. What? You're this scary creature, and all you want is a freaking, what do they call this? A skylight. That's literally all he asks for. I want a skylight. Like, I am just shook by that.
Yeah.
And this is like, okay, maybe this is why I also think it's funny that Cassian's so scared of Braxis, because Braxis says that, and, like, he just went from, like, big scary monster to, like, little, like, fluffy pet in my head. Like, I just want a skylight, and you're like, Cassian's scared of this dude? He just wants to see the stars. Come on now, like, the hell? It's very interesting. So, basically, she makes that deal with Braxis, and then very quickly after, like, shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
And this is when they get rocked because they are predicting the Hybern will enter from a certain spot, and what do? But they enter from somewhere completely opposite. So they're just thrown off. It's winter court, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they enter here, and this is when they actually have to get in the thick of it. They're not as prepared as they wish they were. They don't have the alliances they wish they do. Like, she never found the mirror. She never got to the bone carver at this point. Like, all this stuff, and so they just have to go for it. And this is when there's fighting going on, and Feyre and Moore are like, I picture them on like a hillside for some reason. I don't know.
I think they're overlooking
Yes.
the more active situation.
Yes, and they're kind of from a distance, and Moore's supposed to keep like an eye on her and all these things, and Feyre is like, Moore, you're trained, you want to go in there, go in there, I'll be fine, whatever. So like Moore leaves her, and Feyre is like, ha, and then winnows away.
Yeah, I'll do this one on my own too.
So then she decides, if I can track down the cereal,
Her BFF.
I can figure out how we can stop and find this cauldron, because this is the root of the problem, is a cauldron. And the interesting thing is, she ends up by the Weaver's cottage.
Yeah.
It's in that area where she finds a cereal.
And he's like, hey girl!
Yeah. Besties reunited. And
I knew you'd come.
yes. However, he's being hunted down by Ianthe, who is with some Hybern people, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And Feyre is like about to throw down her life for the cereal. But the cereal is going to throw down his life for Feyre. So if you didn't already love him before, and he does. He puts down his life for her. She's there with him as he dies. All this stuff. It's like, was so sad.
It really was sad, and it's interesting to have this character where you were first introduced in the first book as like this monster, you know, that he's trapped and he might kill her, but he's got like this juicy gossip. But then at the end, you love this character, and you feel so sad, and
he's like very proud of her, and like, you did what I said, you stayed with the High Lord. Like, he has this moment. It's really sweet, but it's terrible. And then Feyre makes it back, but Moore is
wait. The thing he says to her before he dies, there's something he says to her that is so sweet and just like heartwarming. She's like, I'll stay with you. He's like, no, just make a promise to me that you're gonna make this world a better place than the way you found it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not something I would think this character would say, but it sticks with her, and she's very upset.
Yes. So when she gets back, Moore's obviously pissed because she was like, you said you were gonna stay here, and Rhysand's like, what the hell? Like, you have to tell us. You can't just do all these things on your own. Because she wants to just do it on her own. And you do kind of want to shake Feyre a bit because it's getting so frustrating at this point. And then, you know, the battle's over. We're at our camps. And I think it's in the middle of the night. Feyre starts to, like, something alerts her. And Elaine is taken by Hybern. Of course. Friggin' little Elaine. And so they get this grand plan to get Elaine back, but they have to go into the camp to do it. And so Feyre transforms herself into Ianthe because she kills Ianthe when she attacks the cereal. So she's thinking no one has maybe figured out Ianthe's dead. So like, I'm going to use her. I'm going to change myself to be Ianthe. So she goes in, and Azriel goes with her? Or is it Cassian?
No, it's Azriel.
Is it Azriel? Yes, the shadow. So Azriel goes with her. They go in to the camp. Of course, there's a human being tortured, and like, I get it. But like, every time I read any fantasy book and they're like about to like do some like super sketchy thing, I'm like, but I can't leave them behind. It's like, no, I need you to. I need you to leave.
Yeah.
And no,
this is going. But who does she run into?
Tamlin.
Durian.
Oh.
Jurian.
Them
She
two.
runs into Jurian. And
Yeah,
he's like,
Jurian's
he's
the
like,
one
you're
that,
not a Yampy.
and he picks up on it, and Jurian's one like, okay, first off, if you're gonna save her, you need, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
She's kind of like, I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But she takes his advice. Jurian helps her out a bit.
To a degree, yeah. Like he's let the door for her.
Yes, open the door, like, here you go. So they get Elaine. They have this other human that's like on the verge of death, being tortured and whatnot. And then there's Tamlin. And for me, I don't know why, but this scene of them fleeing, Tamlin like on their tail, Hybern pissed. I'm just like, it was like slow motion. I'm like, how is everyone outrunning Hybern right now?
Yeah.
Tamlin, like, eventually, they're about to like go off on a cliff. Agil obviously can fly. He's got the girls. He's got both of them, but he can't carry Feyre as well. So he's like, remember all that training?
Yeah,
for
he's
your
gonna have to
flying?
kick in.
Better work. So this is when Tamlin, and I can't remember exactly what he does, but he does something to distract, to basically throw Hybern off course, go at him, something. So you see like, oh, okay, so maybe Jurian is not a bad guy either, and like, wait, now what's Tamlin doing?
Yeah.
Because Tamlin does show a little bit of like,
Because he sees that she's about to get gone.
yes.
And he prevents whoever it was that was about to grab her. And in that moment, Feyre is, wondering, was that the plan all along to be on that side, or was it this last minute?
Yeah.
Because he probably still loves her. So you don't know, as a reader, is he a good guy, or?
Thankfully the friggin' wings work, because
Yes.
she was about to plummet to her death.
Yeah.
So then everything escalates, and it's war. So I'm just gonna
Yeah.
things escalate. It is full blown war at this point.
I mean, it's a big book.
Yes, obviously. Feyre goes. She faces the Ouroboros
The
mirror, and so this fight is heavy. They realize they're outnumbered. They realize that Hybern actually has like more than he's been letting on. They're gonna get attacked from the sea. They're gonna get all this stuff, and it's just like, at this point they've accepted that, of course, heroic like, we're gonna die, but we're gonna go down fighting.
Yeah, and we're gonna do it together.
And that's the sense you get at this point. You're like, okay. However, Feyre doesn't tell any of them about like, oh, I made all these freaking deals with all these monsters, and so out of nowhere you've got the Bone Carver shows up, his sister the Weaver, and then Braxis all show up, and they're like, time to eat. And you're like, okay.
And she's like, remember, just them.
Yeah, like,
not us.
And this is what I'm still picturing them as, like little like pets. Like,
Yeah.
don't eat those ones. And they're like, okay. And then they go on the front lines and they're just like causing chaos. And I'm picturing Braxis like his big shadowy self.
Yes, that's what I was
like,
picturing, like this big cloud of darkness just kind of like
and
stomping
some
at
of the
people.
soldiers are literally dying before just the sight of these creatures.
Yeah.
They're just dying, and
Yeah.
they're just having a grand old time. Bone Carver is like got all these bones. Anyway, it's just like this lovely little reunion.
Yeah, it's like happy time for the monsters.
Yes, and
They deserve it too, why not?
yes, and then Hybern uses the cauldron to just level out a massive chunk. And I'm pretty sure like the Bone Carver and the Weaver and Braxis go down smiling. It is sad though, in like a weird way, because just like surreal, like they're kind of weird, monstery characters.
Yeah,
But you
but
do
they
feel,
helped her so much
Yes.
in some ways.
and I think they're kind of happy at this point.
Well, and that's something she says too, like as the Bone Carver gets pretty much erased,
Yeah.
she wonders, like, because he was asking her about like death, like did you see it, what was
Yeah.
there, and she's like, I hope he found that place that he's been
Yeah.
searching for.
Does Braxis die now that I think of it?
I don't think so. I think
No,
it's just the
Braxis
Carver and
doesn't.
the Weaver.
Yeah, okay, I take that back. So I was like, wait a second, I feel like Braxis is in other books. I don't think he dies. So then you're just like, oh my gosh, they're just gonna use this cauldron to wipe them all out. Like, they have no power here. And then all of a sudden, it's like these ships on the horizon. And I'm not gonna lie, this part also kind of makes me tear up.
Mm-hmm.
Because who is it leading this fleet of ships? 3 ships named the Feyre, the Elaine, and the Nesta, but their freaking dad, who was worthless up
Did
until
not
this point.
see that coming.
Yeah. And this is when, like...
But he has something else with him on that ship.
Oh, he has Vasa.
Yes,
Yeah,
Lucian didn't find her.
the one that Lucian had been looking for.
The dad found
Because
her.
he had been trading over on the continent, like, this whole time or whatever. Yeah.
Mhm.
And this is... We'll go into a whole thing about, like, theories and whatnot, but this is another thing where, like, that theory, when you're talking about their mom having a connection, just the interesting things that their dad ends up doing in this book for the short time that he's in there. You're kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
Do you know more than we think that you know? Anyway, so that's interesting. And then Amryn, they're like, okay, let's go get the cauldron. Feyre goes with Amryn to the cauldron because where are Nesta and Elaine? I don't really remember. At this point, they think they need all 4 of them because they're all made.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, those 2 are, I don't know, probably crying over their dad. I can't remember where they are. And so I think Amryn and Feyre are like, we're going to be enough.
Yeah.
We'll be enough. We'll go to the cauldron because this is what we have to do.
Oh, you know what it was? They were saying with all of the things going on, they needed the King of Hybern away from the cauldron. They needed him distracted.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
Nesta's like, I'll
Nesta,
do it.
Nesta
I'll
was going to be the
distract him.
distraction.
And so Elaine was like, I'll go with you. And so they make that, and so that's when Amryn
Yes.
says, you know what, the 2 of us will be enough. We need that distraction. So that's what that was.
And then they get there, and Amryn obviously has to go because she's got to say the funny old language things that she needs to say. And this is when, like, Amryn kind of lied to them about the intent and what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And Amryn's basically on, like, a suicide mission, too.
Yeah.
She's going to free herself of this human body because we don't know what Amryn is. But you also don't know if, like, whatever Amryn is going to survive this. Yeah. I don't know. And I understand she lied, but I feel like her lie was good.
Well, when I first read it, and the way that it's written, Feyre is like, I was betrayed. I'm like, you know, and
it is written in an interesting way.
In that very first reading, like just those first few sentences, I was like, oh my god, is Amryn bad? Like I thought like she was setting her up for something worse.
It is set up in a weird way.
Yeah, so when you first read it, you don't know what
you have to like kind of go through like what happens.
Yeah.
So it wasn't terrible.
I wish there was a camera on me when I was reading this part. Because for this part until the very fucking end of the book, excuse my language, I was an emotional basket case.
Because you've got, so Amryn, she's like, oh my god, Amryn betrayed me. And then Nesta's trying to distract the King of Hybern, but then who shows up with like someone at, the King of Hybern shows up with Dad, like as a hostage. And then they're like, oh no, Dad just showed up and saved us. And like, Dad's gone.
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoa. Okay. And Nesta is like really messed up by that. So then, of course, Cassian has weaseled his way into this situation. Cassian's trying to take the brunt of it. He's like dying, crawling, and Nesta's about to get taken out by the king. He's crawling to her, and then he says that line of like, my only regret. And Nesta's like, you know, oh my god, Cassian.
Yeah. And then there's a part where the king is about to kill Cassian and she jumps on him and she's like, I'll take it. Like, you know, I'm thinking in this moment they're going to die together.
And Cassian's line is, and this is how you know I'm on social media too much. His line is, my only regret, Nesta, is that I didn't get enough time to spend with you, or like something like that. Yeah. Something of that nature. You're like, oh my god, wow, sweet. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, little flower child Elaine is like, with Hybern, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like Elaine, who wouldn't even like touch a dagger to like protect herself, like offs the King of Hybern. But I don't know if she like completely offs him, so they go in and like complete the job. But it's Elaine who stabs him.
She stabs the king to give them that moment, and Nesta was like, I got this.
Yeah.
And she rips his goddamn head off.
Oh yeah, because she made that promise to him.
She said, I will kill you.
Yeah, so it was wild. And then we go back to the cauldron, and you've got Amryn and the cauldron has to be like put back together. Like there's some crazy, the cauldron, I'm not gonna lie to you, the cauldron stuff kind of like throws me off. That one's a little too magical for me to like process.
Yeah. Well, and in that moment too, it was weird because we're seeing all of this that happened with Nessa and Elaine through Feyre's eyes, seeing all of this. I don't know, because she was connected while she was like in the I don't really understand what was happening there, but yeah, the cauldron stuff got a little weird.
It gets a little weird. Amryn, she hasn't come out of it yet. But what does happen is Feyre realizes they need to put it back together. And just like when they went to Hybern the first time, she realized she's got to put her hands on it. She's going to like sacrifice, not her complete self, but like she knows she's going to go through something. And Rhysand is behind her. And it's going to sound weird the way I say it, but like he's touching her. He's like grounding them in some way. Like his chat, like he's behind her. Something of that nature, as Feyre is trying to do what she can remember of this old language with the books and all this stuff and like put it back together. And in this process, through the touching, Rhysand has to exert all of his power to get this back together. And Feyre's like, oh my god, you did it! Oh my god, you're dead! Like, and she's just like, are you kidding me right now? Like, this is what you die for? So she's hysterical, obviously.
And so am I.
Yeah.
So am I. I'm crying. I'm mad. And we got this far and he dies?
And also that he has to go out that way. Like, that's what pisses me off. But then, obviously, oh my god, Feyre's like, wait, that one time you guys all gave me some of your magic when I died? So can we do that again?
Do that again. And they're like, oh yeah, I guess so.
And they're like, oh.
And literally, guys, it's like, 2 freaking paragraphs later, he's back. And it was just such a...
They're like, drip, 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 drip. And
such
then
a roller coaster for me.
Sam's like, hello. So he's back. And then right at the last minute, we've got Miriam and Draken, I don't know how people pronounce that, who...
Draken.
Long story short, they're old friends. They were in the first war. They took their people because part Fae, part human there. They took their people to an island and they put all these wards around the island. And this whole time, they've been trying to get in touch with them.
Trying to find them.
Rhysand's been trying to find them, get in touch with them. Like, yo, we need your help. And then they show up and they're like, man, we made it too difficult for our friends to even find us. Gosh darn it. And you're like, really? So they show up right at the end, and long story short, like, Hybern's dead. They're able to push them back. The cauldron's put back together. Amryn literally, like, comes out of the cauldron, and her human form is like, damn it! That's just how I picture it. She's like, what the? I'm still here.
You know what character, every time I read her, I think of, you're gonna laugh, but I think it's the hair. I know she doesn't have glasses.
Edna Mode?
No.
Oh, The Incredibles, because that's what I was thinking.
That's good.
With the hair.
Yeah, I was thinking more of from Scooby Doo.
Oh my god.
What's her name?
That one's not Daphne, is it?
No, Daphne's the.
No, it starts with a V. I had a professor. Velma. I had a professor with the same name.
Every time I read, that's what I'm picturing Velma with the. But yeah, that was a good one.
I thought you were saying Edna Mode.
Edna Mode is really good too.
Oh my god, yeah. So.
But no, she's Fae. She comes out Fae.
Yeah.
She?
Yeah, she comes out Fae, so she's gonna be stuck in this body. And Varian, of course, is like, oh, my lover! And Amryn's like, well, I guess if I get one thing out of this, I'll get love. I don't know. Like, she's so happy. So, thankfully, you know, this war is, like, quote-unquote over to an extent. There's still some unstable things happening, but at least the King of Hybern's dead.
Yeah.
Vasa, the queen, she has to go back, but she's heard, you know, that they're pretty good with these curse breaking things, and so she's very interested in, like, them helping her break this curse, because she's still stuck with this man's curse at this lake, where she is this night bird during the day and human at night, or something like that. Night firebird, or I don't know how to describe it. Something like that. And so, you know, everyone retreats. Tamlin, they're not really sure where he is.
he, surprisingly enough, he does help revive Rhysand.
Yeah.
And I think at some point Feyre is just like, I'll do anything. I'll do
Yeah.
anything. And I was like, oh, girl, be careful.
So everything's just kind of in a weird, what you'd imagine after a war,
Yeah.
just kind of like that now what type of feeling.
Yeah.
Like, we did it, but things are so weird. We gotta go home now. We gotta get our lives together.
Yeah, it's not like in the movies where it's like, yay!
Yeah,
and everything
like,
goes back to normal.
There's
no normal now.
There's a lot of rebuilding. They have the humans to deal with. They have their courts, obviously. They've got to deal with that. There's instability there. They've got to get some sort of alliance with these humans because the treaty and just all this stuff. And then you just have those queens just kind of looming in the background. And you're like, they're up to something. What's going to happen here? And it's just, you obviously end knowing there's going to be more to this. However, if you don't know, this book ends Feyre's point of view. Technically, Frost and Starlight, the little teeny tiny guy, like the winter episode, I think it's Feyre's point of view still.
It's all of theirs.
It's all theirs. So this completely ends Feyre's point of view. And a lot of people, it is hard because you've grown with her, and then Frost and Starlight's different, and then Silver Flames, and you've all of a sudden switched to Nesta's point of view. So it's very interesting because this is where you leave Feyre's mind, but you also get a chance to really understand the other characters a bit more.
Yeah, I think as sad as it will be to not be back in her mind again, I think especially with the next little book, she does get to a point where you feel like maybe things will be okay. Like her story has been told to a good degree. But I'm still always suspicious that can't be true. Yeah. Especially in this world. But yeah, I think she's gotten to a point where perhaps things are okay for her. Mm-hmm. They end the book with Feyre and Rhysand talking about having a baby.
Yeah, now that they've made it through that war.
But they do mention that it's not like humans. Sometimes it takes many, many years or centuries to even have one. So they're kind of like, maybe we should just start trying now. But which is interesting to me because even if things worked out with this war, it still feels like there's a lot of uncertainty left in the world. And so it makes me wonder why you would bring a baby into that. But then sometimes I can see that be the reason that you bring the baby because you don't know how much time you're going to have together and things like that. So yeah, this book ends with just it's time to rebuild, and how are they going to do that?
Yeah.
And if is anything else going to disrupt it? Yeah.
It's definitely like, it's one of those typical war books where you go through like at least 70% of the book and it's all war strategy, meetings, how are you going to do? And then I think this ending is one of the most phenomenal endings in the series. I mean, obviously Under the Mountain is like the last 30% of that book, and that's got a lot going on. But even though war is really hard to read and understand and follow and picture and whatnot, what's happening, there are so many pieces to this. Like the dad coming back, the dad died, Sam dies, then this happens, oh, he's back, King of Hybern dies. Like, it's fast.
Yeah.
It's not they don't drag it on. It's a fast.
Yeah, and there's no way that when you get to at least that part where they're in battle that you're going to put that book down.
Yeah, you have to. I will say, I think a lot of people rag on this because it is, Silver Flames I think is thicker than this, but it is one of the thicker books, and so much of it is kind of like, where should we have the meeting? Well, this, it's a lot of, okay, I gotta get through it, but no, it is good. And if you are, I don't feel like a certain strong feeling, like, I love Feyre more than everyone else, like, she's good, but if you are like a diehard Feyre, it is kind of sad because this is where you leave her mind.
Oh.
So I don't know how you feel about that, but
I'm kind of sad about it. But we're not talking about the next book yet. But the way that book ends, I do have more questions about other people. And like I said, her story feels not complete, but you feel like you've left her in a good place. And it would almost be mean as an author to put her through more crap.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do hope I hear about her.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
she's still very involved.
I think she she has found herself,
Mm-hmm.
and she has found her place, and there are other people who have not.
Yeah, and I think
So-
it's that point where a lot of people, honestly, I hate when people take a book series and they're like, or even a TV show, and they're like, oh, I wish they would just do one more, and it's because they want to see the happy ending or all that stuff, and it's just like you do have to leave them at some point. And she is in a good spot because obviously she's still going to be in the background. She's still going to be a minor character. Like, you're in a good spot to leave her and watch from the sideline, it feels like.
And how many times have you watched the ending of a show, especially a series, and you were a little bit disappointed?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't wrap exactly the way you would have liked. So sometimes, like they say, leave when you're on a high note.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. And so I didn't know that we were done with her point of view. That's kind of sad, but I get it. It makes sense to me. It does. So we'll see. I am curious, do we learn more about Lucian and Jurian? Interesting.
Jury not
But Lucian,
so much.
I know we rag on Lucian, but I do hope something good happens for this guy. I don't think it's going to be Elaine, but I do hope he finds his place because
I will say-
he's very lost.
Yeah. Silver Flames, like, he's there.
Okay.
You're shifting more towards the Illyrians, and, like, there's some new characters that come in. And
Okay.
so you do shift away from he and Elaine. I mean, it's Nesta's point of view.
Yeah, okay.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
It's Nesta's point of view, so you get...
Okay, so then I can
That's
see the disappointment in people because if you are leaving Feyre's point of view, you are leaving some of the characters
Yes.
that you like too.
And then the book after Silver Flames that hasn't come out yet, a lot of people predict is going to shift to Elaine.
Oh, okay.
Because Nesta had her time with Silver Flames.
Gotcha.
So you feel like it's going to shift towards Elaine. And you're gonna
Does
go
anyone
on.
know the name of it yet or no? I know
I
I saw
don't
things,
think
but I don't
so.
think they were real. The things. that
Yeah, I think people guess. She's pushed back the publishing date, all this stuff, so I know it's actually legit. That's out
Gotcha.
there.
I think I've seen some funny memes of people calling it about how long it's taken.
Yeah, exactly. So.
But okay.
But
Well,
anywho, next time we'll go back to some mystery.
Yes.
Next time it's Good Bad Girl, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I think it'll be our first journey back into America. Because I think Good Bad Girl. No, it's
No,
England
it's
too?
England, yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, I'm thinking of the one I'm reading right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, you're thinking of the other one.
Yeah.
Good Bad Girl is still
Yeah,
England.
okay. I'm thinking about one that I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
It's my first one in America.
I know.
In a long
Nope.
time.
We're back in England.
We're still doing England. Okay, good old UK.
But
Love it.
anywho,
Yeah.
thanks for sticking around. That was a long one. It's
That
a hefty
was.
book.
Yeah, so as usual, please try to reach out. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. Share with your friends. Let us know recommendations that you would like us to do. Maybe one day we can get Kira to read something that's not fantasy or thriller.
Maybe.
Maybe. We'll see.
It's unlikely, but I'll get